And after Wilson, you've moved on where you are now
At Dennis,
at Dennis Family Homes. What pulled you towards residential construction in the current climate?
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation, Anton. I got approached. I used the word I was curious in the market. I wasn't actively looking, but I was getting to that point at Wilson where if I was going to stay, I was probably going to stay for another 3 to 4 years because there were some really significant programs of work kicking off, and I'm a firm believer in you don't leave things sort of halfway. And so I was, as I said, I wasn't actively looking, but if I got a phone call, I'd be curious about it. And I was going for a role at a well-known retail brand. I won't say who it is. And a well-known beverage brand. And I passed both of those down because they weren't quite right.
Okay.
And one of those recruitment consultants said, I've got something a little bit left field for you. And I went, okay. And they said, it's residential construction. I said, interesting. They said, it's quite small. It's 500 odd employees. It was actually smaller than that. It was about 300, as I found out. Where I'd come from, Wilson was 12,000 people.
Yeah.
Right. Victorian only. And I'm like, well, I'm currently got an international remit. But a huge opportunity. They've got to drive a serious transformation. And I said, okay. I said, I'm curious, but transformation when the market's as suppressed as it is, and every construction business was up against it, and we've seen what happens. What's happened with a couple of Dennis's competitors.
Yeah.
Can they walk the talk? Are they really serious about this? And I think what won me over, Anton, was that I met the MD of the housing business. I met the group CEO and CFO, and they were amazing. But then they asked me to meet the board, and I met a board member, and I sat down with that person, and they sort of said, "Look, we know we've got to invest, and we know that we're in a tough place financially, but if we don't invest, we've got no chance."
Yep.
Sort of thing. So we want this role to come in. We want to establish someone who's going to focus on customer-facing tech.
Yep.
And clearly some of the things I'd done at Wilson and a few of the other businesses, had a bit of a track record in really focusing on the customer outcome. And as I said, by making the employee experience best I can. And I said, okay, well, let's go through it. So then January last year, I stepped into a role, and as I said, the market was really tough. Business was really tough. And, 3 months later, 90-day review, I'm sitting down with the board. Very different board because, there's people with the surname Dennis on the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really their money.
Yes.
Right. And again, that's a totally different viewpoint. And it was actually that person that turned around and said, well, we've got you in to do a job, because I sat there and I said, well, I need a small team and I need some capital investment. And I know both headcount and capital in a business that's going through a tough time is a really big ask. But here's what I'm going to do with it. The board turned around and said, well, we've got you in to do a job. Well, I guess, we've got to support you. But there's certain terms and conditions to that. And we want visibility, and we want to see velocity, and that's where it went. So I can't fault, the support of Sean Ralph Smith, my CEO. I can't fault the support of the board. They've been incredible, and we're doing some really amazing things. We're really changing it up, and there's obviously a lot I can't talk about. But you'll see some things in the coming months where we're really changing the game of how you sell a residential house.
That's great. Look, I love it. I love that in your career you've gone into, let's say, non-traditional companies that people think about tech.
Yep.
And you can see the passion in you about working in those companies and the transformation and the journey that they're coming on as well. And I think that's really admirable. And I think that, again, it clearly resonates with you to be in much more of a family type setup. You even spoke about your parents earlier on. Family's obviously an important facet to you.
Yeah, Dad was self-employed.
Yes.
So I guess that gravitates to me. I guess, Anton, And we had this conversation earlier. Is it foolhardy or is it courageous? Is it brave? Sometimes it's all of those.
Yeah.
But I strongly believe in going where you can make the biggest difference and the most impact.
Yeah.
And as I said, some of those have landed, some of those haven't. But that's okay. Provided you get home at the end of the day and you're thinking, have I made a difference today? That's what drives me.